Republican front-runner Donald Trump easily took two of the latest primaries, Mississippi and Michigan, consolidating his lead in the race to become his party's presidential candidate. The wins have restored his unconventional campaign's momentum and raised the pressure on mainstream Republicans to try and stop him.
The turnout has been just massive for every week. We have Democrats coming over, very importantly. We have independents coming over. We had people come over here who have never voted Republican, who have never even thought about it.
For the Democrats, there was a major surprise, with Bernie Sanders defying the polls and engaging Hillary Clinton in a tight race for Michigan. It ended up with projections giving him a narrow win.
What tonight means is that the Bernie Sanders campaign, the people's revolution that we are talking about, the political revolution that we are talking about, is strong in every part of the country. And frankly, we believe that our strongest areas are yet to happen.
Clinton, who had earlier won Mississippi, was disappointed with Michigan, but the delegates there will be split due to the state's proportional award system. The main loser on the night was Republican Marco Rubio, who notched up 0 Michigan delegates. The UN has raised concerns that the EU's proposed migration deal with Turkey could be illegal. Under it, all migrants arriving in Greece from Turkey would be returned, and for each Syrian sent back, a Syrian in Turkey would be resettled in the EU. The UN says collective expulsion of foreigners is not consistent with European law.
As a first reaction, I'm deeply concerned about any arrangement that would involve the blanket return of anyone from one country to another without spelling out the refugee protection safeguards under international law. An asylum seeker should only be returned to a third state if the responsibility for assessing the particular asylum application in substance is assumed by the third country.
The EU's Parliament has also stressed that asylum seekers should only be returned to other states if there's a guarantee they will not be eventually sent back to a war zone. And Amnesty International has weighed in, calling the plan a death blow to the right to seek asylum.
Europe's migration crisis, the threat of terrorism and a new high-speed train link between their two countries. There was no shortage of talking points for François Hollande and Matteo Renzi meeting in Venice for a Franco-Italian summit. This after a potential breakthrough deal on migration agreed with Turkey. We're very happy to put all our efforts into writing a new page in the relationship between Turkey and the EU, the Italian leader said. But in a clear reference to Ankara's recent crackdown on the press, he added that at the same time we'd say with great clarity and very strongly that press freedom is an amazing value for France, home of the Declaration of Human Rights, for Italy and for all those men and women who believe in the EU's founding values. On fighting terrorism, the French president said this means taking decisions on a European scale. They have been taken, but we must implement them. Every country must make an effort, he said, urging that information be shared. The leaders also expressed impatience at Libya's failure to form a functioning national unity government. And accompanied by their ministers, they signed an agreement aimed at removing the final obstacles to the realization of a controversial high-speed rail link between Lyon and Turin. Their plight no longer makes the headlines, but the enslavement and rape of Yazidi women and children by ISIL extremists goes on. Fellow Yazidis marked International Women's Day by urging the world to remember the thousands held in captivity, staging their protest at a camp for the internally displaced in Iraq's northern Kurdish region. We want to tell the whole international community that more than 1.5 years on, Yazidi women are still being killed, raped and sold as slaves at slave markets. We're in the 21st century and we still have women being sold at the slave market. We've been taken back to the Middle Ages. Seized when jihadists attacked their communities around Sinjar mountain in Iraq in 2014, some Yazidi captives have escaped or been bought out of slavery. But for many, the nightmare of unimaginable abuse continues.
A wave of Palestinian attacks have left 1 American dead and a dozen Israelis wounded near Tel Aviv and East Jerusalem, according to police. The American was one of 10 people stabbed in the Jaffa port area, which is popular with tourists. It happened as US Vice President Joe Biden was being met by former Israeli President Shimon Peres at the start of a 2-day visit. The White House is trying to appear indifferent to a snub by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's cancelled a meeting later this month in Washington. It's being seen as yet another sign of strained relations between the two administrations.
The President sends his greetings, and we have absolute, total, unvarnished commitment to the security of Israel, and I hope we can make some progress.
There were other attacks on Tuesday, including a shooting incident and an attempted stabbing near East Jerusalem. Since October, a series of stabbings, shootings and car rammings have killed 28 Israelis. Security forces have killed at least 177 Palestinians. France is bracing itself for nationwide protests and strikes against a government-proposed labour reform bill. Unions across the board are up in arms, saying it will undermine workers' rights. The government says it will incentivise businesses to hire more employees. The so-called El Khomri law, named after Economy Minister Miriam El Khomri, is designed to give employers more flexibility in hiring and firing, but critics say it unduly threatens job security. Unemployment in France is running at an 18-year high of over 10%, a figure which President François Hollande is desperate to see fall. In order to salvage the bill, the government is currently negotiating some changes. And just to add to the chaos, rail workers for the state-owned SNCF operator are holding their own strike in support of pay and conditions.
A total eclipse in Indonesia. Crowds of skywatchers have gathered to see the rare astronomical spectacle. A partial eclipse of the sun was also visible to millions in Australia, other parts of Southeast Asia and the Pacific. But only people in a small band of Indonesia had the opportunity to see the moon perfectly silhouetted by the sun. Indonesia last saw a total eclipse back in 1983, and it will be 3 years until the next one. Wow. It's a sight that's drawn thousands to this part of the world, but not everyone in Indonesia's had a good view this time around. Cloudy skies and smog obscured the total eclipse in Palembang city on the western island of Sumatra, disappointing the crowds who gathered shortly after daybreak. The world's next total solar eclipse is due in August next year and should be visible in the US.